Welcome to today's discussion, General. It's a really great honor to have you here again.
Thank you.
So, after years of sanctions and pressure, the United States has crossed a historic threshold recently: a military operation, the capture of a sitting president, and the US courtroom becoming for stage for Venezuela's future. This is no longer just about Maduro, it's about power, president, and what comes next in the Western Hemisphere. General, what kind of conflict is this really?
This can only be explained with global power competition. We know that it is not a new thing, the global power competition, but the world is now in transition. The rule-based world order, which was established after the Second World War, is now ending, and a new world order is emerging. And unfortunately, the humanity is losing its achievements, which is the accumulation of many years of history. After the Second World War, indeed, the humanity has really reached a serious level of development. The democracies, rule of law, human rights, liberties, freedom of speech. Now, such values are eroding, and these values are even eroding in the most democratic countries.
Those institutions are becoming more and more representative instead of being really working in practice, right?
And very interestingly, world order is established by the Western powers, and this West established world order is being damaged by the Western powers.
So I'm trying to understand why everything is happening nowadays, especially in Venezuela. After years of pressure, why did this escalate at this exact moment? What changed strategically?
One of the important factors in this is the President Trump's taking office and his new policies. There's a drastic change in the US strategies and policies after President Trump came to power. I wouldn't say that the previous administrations were peaceful. The United States is responsible for most of the conflicts in the world. But in the past, it was kind of finding a loophole in the international law. But today, there is no any care about international law. Very openly, they violate everything. So that becomes a precedence. And with this now, in any part of the world, any country can act similarly.
Yeah,
Uh,
some may suggest that this is even better because, like, instead of being hypocritical, just like showing their moves, I don't know, but like the shift is definitely real. No one cares being politically correct anymore.
Yes, maybe not politically correct, but this would also lead to an anarchy in the international relations, and
Yeah.
any country which feels itself powerful try to use force without any hesitation to reach their national objectives. In the past, there was diplomacy. Before going to war, the states were really using diplomacy. They were trying to do their best. But now the diplomacy is forgotten. Power has become the primary tool to reach the objectives.
I was wondering if Donald Trump wouldn't be ruling right now, if anything would really be different. Because I don't know if all of these are coming from one person or coming from a global shift of everything, right? How do you see?
Both, I can say both. I mean, it's not only related to the Donald Trump's personality or his choices, but his policy is like that. He is aware of the power decline of the United States. United States has a large foreign debt, $35 billion. The US economy is not performing well. China is growing very fast, and the United States is now facing a threat that they could lose their leadership role in the world. So they want to reverse this situation. He wants to do it relying on the main source of power of the United States. The United States has a political power and also a very strong military power. They want to primarily use these two powers. As you know, that the name of the Ministry of Defense has
That's true.
changed and has become Ministry of War,
Yes.
Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War.
Yeah, indeed. And now we're seeing the exact nomenclature being happening. So like in this channel, we are talking about a lot of conflicts and United States has always a part of this. But in this episode, since we are trying to deep dive to the Venezuela, I was wondering what was the relationship between Venezuela and USA so far?
In the past, United States was in control of Venezuelan resources, oil resources. The US companies made many profits from Venezuelan resources. There was a pro-American administration for some time in Venezuela. In that relationship, only a small group of people of Venezuela benefited from this because US has a capitalist system. They don't want to make the entire population benefit from the revenues of the country. But the ordinary people did not enjoy the welfare in Venezuela. And this is a vicious cycle. And because of this dissatisfaction, there was a growing reaction to the United States. And in such cases, the leftist parties rise. And Chavez was one of the leaders of Venezuela who challenged the United States, and he invited Russian Chinese companies, and he started working with Chinese, Russian, and also some European countries. There was a big change, and the US has lost its influence in Venezuela. So it was a kind of balance policy. In such cases, United States imposed sanctions. The country face economic problems. The people start getting poor, despite the fact that Chavez have provided many social assistance programs to Venezuela people. For some time, the people of Venezuela really enjoyed this. But one of the mistakes of Chavez was that he hasn't invested in other sectors like technology or industrial production and so on. So they were very much reliant on oil resources. When they were imposed sanctions, automatically they lose their profit and the people start suffering. And after such case, the countries, because of this dissatisfaction, the rightist opposition starts growing. It's
Yeah,
a kind of vicious cycle. And the United
exactly.
States has always been interventionist in that region. But now with Trump administration and especially with the new security strategy of the United States, it's very clearly stated that the United States would not allow any foreign power to have strategic, economic, political, or military relationship with the countries in South or North America. He wants those countries to work with the United States. If they need to buy weapons, for example, they should first go to the United States. If they want to export their oil, they have to work with United States and so on. So this is a kind of enforcement policy to those countries, and Venezuela is maybe the first victim of this approach.
So, General, all of these things are actually reminding me the history, especially the history of Iraq in general. So there were, of course, lots of events happened, and there were always some ways to legitimize the actions, right? And in this case specifically, the US is using narco-terrorism as a legitimization tool. And I believe this has also some like legal uh, power somehow on top of Venezuela. So I was wondering how they are utilizing these legitimization tools in general.
First of all, this is the violation of international law, and more importantly, it is also the violation of the American Constitution. This
What
is
do you
not
mean by that?
this is not my opinion, but this is the opinion of many Americans. They criticize Trump administration because he used military force without any Congress approval, authorization. He made this decision on his own. And according to US Constitution, the US president can only use force on his own decision in case of a direct aggression to the United States or there is an imminent threat to the United States. There
I
is
believe
no
it's only,
such case, and so they want to make it, they try to legalize this case and they name this operation as law enforcement of operation. But that doesn't fit into this. I mean, how can you carry out a law enforcement operation outside the authority of the United States institutions? So the
yeah,
United States law enforcement operations could only be carried out within the borders of United States, but they carry out it in another country. Uh,
I think,
and
yeah,
And furthermore, I mean, they say law enforcement authority, but 150 aircraft, many naval ships, maritime vessels, soldiers, helicopters used. They bombarded the air base, military headquarters, the port. How can this become a law enforcement operation? It is clearly military operation.
yes, yeah, that's indeed. And I believe they're just like using those narco-terrorism events. Basically, they're happening in those regions because it's a really like active and dangerous region somehow. But like blaming one country only for that and without using any kind of evidences and not really approving, like following some law enforcement, it's just like kind of like seeing fake and just like I don't know,
Yeah.
a curtain, you know.
True. I mean, there may be people, and there may even be high-ranking people in Venezuela who might have been involved in such crimes.
Mhm.
But that doesn't give the right to the United States to carry out a military operation and to abduct the president of Venezuela. So it is violation of international law, and it's also violation of the US domestic law.
I would like to ask, do you expect any kind of following military operations in the region?
The political goal of United States is to make Venezuela pro-American country, pro-US country. So to reach this, they decided to carry out a military operation, and the main objective of this military operation is to provide the necessary conditions to make Venezuela a pro-American country. The abduction of Maduro has provided some conditions for the United States to advance towards their objectives, but that doesn't mean that they have already achieved their objectives. So the next phase, they may need another military operation, but their intention is to is to reach an agreement with Venezuela without any military operation. And the main objective of the United States is also to establish control over Venezuela and Venezuelan resources, oil resources, natural gas resources, and maybe the rare earth minerals. So if they can agree with the Venezuelan authorities, they may not need to carry out a military operation, but the situation is very complex now. It
Mhm.
seems like that the United States has agreed with the Vice President of Venezuela. Now she is appointed as the President of Venezuela by the Supreme Court in accordance with their constitution. Trump does not want to change the regime, but wants to change some people in the regime.
I
Now,
see.
it seems like there is a kind of the internal conflict among the administration in Venezuela.
So this is why the system at the Venezuela still didn't collapse. And I was wondering always like who is there actually being a real authority now? And you're saying that there's no actual regime change and there's some people inside of that regime has some real authority.
So there are some strong people, as I said, the vice president, she's now the president. The second person, I think, is the defense minister, interior minister, justice minister. There are some claims that some of them are on the criminal list of United States.
I see.
There are different allegations about this. Some people even say that they have facilitated the US operation in Venezuela. So it seems like there is a kind of internal conflict between high officials of Venezuela.
I see. But since it's still so new and the government is not being like not publishing everything publicly, then we need to just wait to see more evidences. But definitely there are lots of news coming from Venezuela in this way. So, general, historically, I was wondering, does external pressure break regimes or harden them? Which patterns does Venezuela fit? Now you say they don't want to change the regime, so how do you expect the regime's picture?
Usually, external pressures lead to the rise of opposition in those countries. As I
Mhm,
said, because the ordinary people usually do not benefit from the American intervention, only a small group of elites benefit from this. And this dissatisfaction turns into a political movement, and this movement grows, then starts challenging both the Americans and also the pro-American regimes in South America.
mhm,
There are some examples like Venezuela, win the elections and then becomes the ruling power.
mhm.
Then they start facing problems. As I said, it's a kind of vicious cycle.
Yes. So do you see this crisis widening or stabilizing soon?
It's interesting situation. There is a silent majority in Venezuela.
Mhm,
Those people are mostly non-political, and they are the ones who really suffer from the adverse conditions in Venezuela. There are people in different opinions who welcome the American operation. They believe this operation would help the Venezuelans to recover. There are people who were forced to leave the country by the former or by Maduro, and those people who live in other countries welcome the American operation, but not all of them. Although some people do not like Maduro, they are also against Americans. So
yeah.
it's a very diverse group of people.
Exactly. And I think since the nature of this conflict has so many layers, for instance, Maduro being not a democratic person, for instance, creates another layer. And I believe it makes to isolate all of the causality and effects of the situation and all of the actors becoming more and more hard for lots of people. This is why, like, I believe, like, lots of people can naively believe that it would be great if US just comes there because they're going to, like, bring democracy there. But this could be true, but to be really understand what's happening in there, you need to understand what are the, like, rewards for those actors in the region because nothing happens for only democracy, right? And I don't think in specifically in this context, democracy is not on the table at all. Like it's not on
And
the.
yes, you are right. And I mean, United States, even there is no democracy in US. This is
Exactly.
the criticism against Trump administration.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the United States has not brought democracy to countries, and they intentionally do not want to do it. They only want to work with the elites of the country who collaborate with US. They only make happy those people, but the rest of the people, the majority of the people of the country suffer in US interventions.
Yes. General, like my last question is about the countries who are going to be affected by this conflict. Which countries do you think as the top of that list being affected by this conflict, and how you expect them to be affected?
So Trump has made it clear. I think he has a list and he even announced it, saying Colombia, Cuba. Uh, those countries seems like the following countries in the region which will be affected, but the many countries will be affected in South America with the new US policies. As I said, United States wants to not limit, but wants to even deny their relationship with other major powers in the world. It's going to be really an increasing tension in the Americas in the coming months, not only in South America, but also in the North. Greenland or Greenland is one of the top issues nowadays. For the Venezuela, there is a high uncertainty. There may be an increasing tension in the country. There may be military coup. It is also possible that an internal conflict may erupt. It is not clear whether the armed forces and militias of Venezuela will resist for a possible American occupation. So there are
Yeah,
too many uncertainties at this time. But this operation and this move uh, has made it very clear that the world affairs are not going into a positive direction, but into a negative direction. And
indeed.
yes,
Yeah. And yeah, we are going to see the USA as an actor being more and more active in the overall world map, I guess. But I feel like the main reason is totally economical, because the like economical mathematics is not that much like hard actually, because like they're right now not growing anymore. They're losing some kind of economical up hence, and they're trying to reverse this situation somehow. And I believe this makes them more and more aggressive. But I believe these are going to just increase the speed of this overall transformation. And yeah, well, who knows, we're going to see this year at 2026.
yes, and we may see new conflicts in the world, and this has set a precedence with an operation to the president of a country, and
Yeah.
we may see very extraordinary operations in different parts of the world by different countries, because that has already set a precedence.
Yes, indeed. So thank you, General. Those were all of my questions for today. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you very much once again for the program. I think we need leaders who would work for peace.
Yes, this moment isn't just about Venezuela. It's about whether force, law, and power can be cleanly separated anymore. What happens next will tell us not only how this crisis ends, but how future ones begin. So we'll see you in the next episode.